She sat across from me that night, calm, almost rehearsed. There was no trembling in her voice, no trace of hesitation in her eyes. Just a quiet, detached certainty. "I think I need some time to figure myself out," she said. No contact. No calls, no texts, nothing. "I just need space." That was it. No fight, no tears. Just a simple statement dropped between us like a sealed envelope. I remember sitting there, staring at her, waiting for some kind of emotion to slip through. Maybe a crack in her voice, maybe a flicker of doubt in her expression. But there was nothing. She was calm to calm. "So, you're saying it's temporary?" I asked, barely recognizing the sound of my own voice. She smiled. A polite, distant smile. "Yeah, just temporary. I need to clear my head." I nodded. What else could I do? I didn't want to push. I didn't want to be the desperate guy begging her to stay. So I stood up, quietly packed a few things, and left the apartment we used to call home. It still smelled like her perfume, that soft, floral scent she loved. The same scent that once made the place feel warm and alive. But now it just lingered in the air like a ghost. I looked around before I left the coffee mug she always used, the blanket she picked out, the photo frame on the shelf, and for the first time it all felt staged, like a set from a life that had already ended. I crashed at my brother's place that night, telling myself it was just a break. A few weeks, maybe. She'd text. She'd miss me. She'd realize we were too connected to just pause everything. But something about that night stayed with me, not sadness. Exactly, but a chill. A quiet, unsettling kind of cold that made me think. This wasn't a break. The way she spoke, the way she avoided my eyes, how steady her tone was, it didn't sound like someone who needed space. It sounded like someone who had already decided, someone who had already left. And still, I didn't fight it. I didn't beg. I didn't say, "Please don't go." Because deep down, I knew if someone truly wants to leave, nothing you say will make them stay. That night, lying on a strange bed in my brother's guest room, I kept hearing her voice echo in my head. No contact, no calls, no texts. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order, cold, final, and like a fool, I obeyed, thinking I was giving her the space she needed, not realizing I was giving her the freedom to move on. The first few days were strangely quiet. No phone calls, no texts, no notifications lighting up my screen. At first I told myself it was okay, that this was what she wanted, and I could handle it. I threw myself into work, tried to fill the silence with noise. But silence has a way of finding you. It follows you into the car, into the shower, into every corner of your day until it starts to feel heavier than sound itself. Every morning, I'd wake up with that same instinct to check my phone, just in case. Maybe she'd changed her mind. Maybe she'd sent something small, a hey or a good morning, but nothing. By the end of the first week, the quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was suffocating. Her absence started showing up in strange places, the empty passenger seat when I drove to grab coffee, the quiet TV dinners I used to share with her on lazy nights. Even the grocery store felt wrong. I'd catch myself reaching for the yogurt brand she liked, or scrolling through Netflix and stopping on the shows we used to watch together. Then I'd remember, no contact. I respected it. I kept my distance. I told myself it was temporary, but the truth is, Every day felt longer than the last. Every night felt like a slow drip of time that refused to move forward. I'd see her name pop up on my social media feed, not her posts, but people tagging her in random things. Nothing personal, just background noise. Still, every time I saw that name, it hit like a small electric shock. I'd click her profile and stop. I couldn't open it. I didn't want to know. But curiosity is cruel. It whispers when you're tired. So, one night, I gave in. I typed her name, opened her page. It was private, but her profile picture had changed. Not a big deal to anyone else, but to me. It was her, at a cafe. A warm smile, sunlight on her hair, that same calm face that told me she needed space. Only this time, someone else was holding the camera. I stared at that photo longer than I should have. Not angry, not jealous, just empty, because deep down I realized I wasn't part of that picture anymore. Not even in the background. That's when the silence stopped feeling like space. It started feeling like distance, and the more I tried to stay calm, the more I felt it, that subtle, sinking awareness that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't trying to find herself. Maybe she'd already found someone else. Time moved slowly, as if every day stretched longer than the one before. I kept trying to stay calm, trying to look like I was fine. I still went to work, talked to co-workers, smiled when I was supposed to. But inside, things were starting to crack, piece by piece. The silence between us was no longer an agreement. It had become a wall. I stood on one side, and I didn't know where she was, what she was doing, or what she was thinking. All I knew was that I was no longer a part of her routine. At night, I would sit by the window and stare at the street. Headlights passed by and disappeared, just like the way she left my life. Quick, clean, without looking back. I started keeping a small journal, marking each day since our so-called break began. It sounded crazy, but it was the only way I felt like I still had control over something. Day 10, her account became active again. No posts, just a few likes on friends' photos. Normal, I told myself. She's alive. She's functioning. She's still her. Day 13, a mutual friend shared a story, and for a brief second, I saw someone who looked just like her. I replayed the clip several times. The lighting was dim, but I was sure. She was smiling, holding a glass of wine, standing next to a man I didn't recognize. Not intimate, but not distant either, just comfortable, natural. I stared at that image for a long time, then set my phone down and smirked faintly. She once said she needed space to think. Maybe thinking was easier with company. Still, I didn't text her, didn't ask questions, didn't react. I just observed, calm, detached, almost cold. I told myself that if she truly wanted to come back, I wanted to see if she would do it honestly. I didn't want to win her back with emotion. I wanted to see her choice. Day 17, I ran into her mother at a grocery store. A brief, polite encounter. She asked how I'd been, and I simply said, "I'm fine." "Thank you." But there was something in her eyes, a flicker of hesitation, like she knew something I didn't. That night, I lay on the couch, my mind spinning with questions that had no answers. I wondered if she ever thought of me, even for a moment, or if this pause was simply the soft cushion before the fall, a gentle setup for the final goodbye. Something inside me began to change. Where there used to be sadness and confusion, now there was a cold, calculated clarity. I no longer checked my phone, waiting for her message. I just watched, silently, like someone observing a storm from afar, fully aware it was coming closer, but no longer afraid. And then, on the night of day 20, a notification appeared. A new post, not from her, but from her mother's account. A picture taken at a seaside restaurant. Golden sunset, smiling faces, glasses of cocktails, everyone glowing with warmth. And there, unmistakably, right in the center, was her. Hair tied up, white dress, standing next to the same man from that earlier story. Her mother had tagged her in the photo. I don't remember how long I stared at the screen. All I know is that, in that moment, my heart went eerily still. Not in pain, not even in shock. Just silence. The kind of silence that no longer expects anything, and in my head, a single thought echoed. So that's what her space really was. A polite way of saying I should disappear. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even get angry. I just sat there, staring at that glowing notification. New post fade out of my screen, as if it had never appeared. But deep down, in that exact moment, something inside me quietly shifted. If before I had still been waiting, still holding on to some thread of hope, now it was gone. She'd given me the clearest answer possible, without saying a single word. The next morning, I woke up early, brewed a cup of coffee, and opened the window. No more heaviness in my chest, no stabbing ache that used to hit every time I thought of her. Just this strange calm, cool, detached, but peaceful. It felt like a storm had finally passed, and I was standing among the ruins, realizing there was nothing left to collapse. I looked at the photo again. She was laughing, her eyes bright, her shoulder leaning just slightly toward that guy, natural, unforced, comfortable. If I hadn't known her, I would have thought they were just two people at the start of something new, happy, effortless, unburdened, and I laughed. Not out of bitterness, but because I finally understood how much time I'd wasted searching for an explanation, when the truth had been right in front of me the whole time. For 20 days, I tried to make sense of what taking space meant. Was it a test, a pause to heal, or a way to see how I'd react? But now it was obvious. It wasn't about space at all. It was just the polite version of saying, I'm moving on. I just don't want to look like the bad guy. I remembered the way she said it that night, calm and composed. I just need a little time to figure myself out. Hearing it now in my head, it sounded rehearsed, like a scripted exit line meant to keep her image clean. And me, I was the fool who believed every word of it. That afternoon, I went out. The city looked brighter than usual, or maybe it was just me, finally seeing it clearly. I stopped by the coffee shop we used to go to, sat at our old table by the window. Soft jazz played in the background. The clinking of cups, quiet chatter, a waitress laughing somewhere behind me. All of it felt oddly peaceful. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad. I just felt free. I realized something that day. Sometimes the cruelest thing isn't betrayal. It's uncertainty, because uncertainty keeps you waiting for something that's already over. When I got home, I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a message, a letter. Not to send, but to release. You asked for space, and I gave it to you. My silence wasn't weakness. It was respect. But now I understand Some truths don't need time to figure out. They just need the courage to be spoken. I stopped there. Didn't delete it, didn't save it. Just closed a laptop. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept straight through till morning. No tossing, no dreams, no pain. And when I woke up, I knew, even if she came back, I wouldn't be the same person anymore then. As if the universe was testing me, a message appeared on my phone. It was her. I'm sorry for disappearing. I just needed some time to get myself together. Can we talk? I stared at it for a long time. No racing heartbeat, no flood of emotion. Just a small, quiet smile, because for the first time, I realized my silence had finally become my own. The message came on a Friday night, the kind of night no one wants to be disturbed. I was sitting on the couch, the room dimly lit by a single desk lamp. The TV was on, but no one was watching. Its sound was just background noise, filling the silence. The beer in my hand had gone warm, but I took another sip anyway. And then my phone buzzed. Her name lit up on the screen. No mistake, it was her. The same person who had vanished for more than 3 weeks. The one who said she needed space to find herself. The message was short. Are you still awake? Such a simple question, yet my chest tightened. It didn't mean much, but it felt like a hand knocking on the locked door of a memory I'd tried to seal away. I didn't reply. I just watched the message glow, then fade, as if she were only testing her luck to see if I was still there, waiting on the other side. 15 minutes later, another message came. I know you saw that post. I'm sorry. It's not what you think. I let out a quiet laugh. Not what you think, the most predictable line from someone who knows they've messed up but can't admit it. Not what I think. What? She wasn't smiling in that photo. The man beside her was just a co-worker. Or maybe I was the one who didn't understand what space really meant. The phone buzzed again. A call from her. I looked at the screen. 6 seconds, 10, 20. Then I let it go dark. Not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed to hear her voice. The voice that once brought me peace now sounded like the echo of well-rehearsed lies wrapped in emotion. 5 minutes later, another message appeared. Can you please let me explain? I messed up. I set the phone down and stepped out onto the porch. The sky was pale with a weak moon, half hidden behind grey clouds. A soft wind carried the smell of damp earth after rain. I stood there quietly, staring at the empty street. A distant car passed. A dog barked, then silence again. Everything was still. And in that stillness, I realized I wasn't hurting anymore. 3 weeks ago, just seeing her name would make my heart race. Now, it was just a reflex. A blink, nothing more. I sat on the steps and lit a cigarette. It had been a long time since I'd smoked. She used to hate the smell, said it made the house lose its warmth. But now, there was no warmth left to lose. The smoke rose and vanished into the night, as faint and shapeless as old promises. I thought about those early days when she used to laugh easily when she'd ask, "Are you tired?" just to pull me into a hug without reason. All of it now felt like someone else's story. I had tried to hold on, to understand, to believe she was just confused. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe some people, when they say they need to find themselves, are really just preparing to find someone new. I went back inside, unlocked my phone one last time. The messages were still there, waiting. 3 short lines that sounded full of regret, but I didn't believe them anymore. I knew she didn't want me. She just didn't want to feel left behind. She needed to know that no matter how many times she walked away, I'd still be there. I opened the chat, stared for a while. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, then pulled away. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because I finally understood that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the only way to keep what's left of your dignity. I turned off the phone, set it on the table, and leaned back. I played an old piano piece, slow, melancholic. The notes repeated, hollow and deep, filling the space she once occupied. I closed my eyes, took a slow breath, and let the sound settle into the quiet. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. No dreams, no waking up in the middle of the night. For the first time, she didn't visit me in my sleep. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the blinds. I got up, made coffee, and watched the steam rise from the white mug. Everything looked the same, the kitchen, the chair, the old photos on the shelf. But something had changed. No more heaviness. No more holding on. I realized she had been gone for a long time. I just hadn't accepted it. And maybe, in her leaving, I found something she never would, peace. 3 weeks after that night, I didn't answer her messages. Life quietly slid back into rhythm. I went back to work, hit the gym again, learned to eat alone without feeling strange. Some nights, I'd even let myself smile when an old song came on. She stayed silent. I figured that was the end of it, until one afternoon, standing in line for coffee, I heard that voice behind me. "You still drink your coffee black, huh?" I turned around. It was her beige sweater, hair tied back, still beautiful in that quiet way she always was. But her eyes, they carried something different this time. Guilt, maybe, or just hesitation. I couldn't tell. "Yeah," I said simply, calm, polite, like talking to someone I used to know. She smiled, a small, awkward curve of the lips. "How have you been?" "I'm good," I replied evenly. "You?" She lowered her eyes, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I'm okay. I just started a new job." I nodded, not adding anything. She took a slow breath. "I know you probably don't want to hear this," she said quietly, "but I'm sorry. That day everything got out of hand." I didn't mean for it to turn out like that. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see the girl I once loved. I saw someone trying to find their way back without a map. It was strange, that mix of familiarity and distance. "It's fine," I said. "We both did what we thought was right at the time. It's just different now." Her eyes softened. "So you're not mad at me anymore?" I shook my head slowly. "No, anger doesn't fix anything. What's done is done." In that moment, I realized how much I'd changed. The old me would have searched for reasons, asked why, tried to fix it all. But now there was no need. The ache was gone. The questions didn't matter. Somewhere along the way, I'd already healed. She bit her lip, voice trembling a little. "I miss you." I gave her a faint smile, not bitter, not nostalgic, just honest. "Do you miss me? Or do you miss how it felt when I was around?" She said nothing, but in her silence, I saw the truth flicker behind her eyes, that she missed the comfort, not necessarily the person. And maybe she knew it too. We stood there quietly as the espresso machine hissed and the air filled with the smell of roasted beans. Outside, the Seattle sky was grey and damp. Raindrops slid down the window, people rushed by in raincoats, and everything just moved on. I should go, I finally said. Take care of yourself. She looked at me, maybe wanting to stop me, maybe not, then just whispered, okay. Goodbye. I walked out. The doorbell chimed softly behind me as I stepped into the rain. Cold drops hit my shoulders, but I didn't feel them. My steps were light, steady, because I knew this wasn't just another run-in. It was closure. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. Some endings don't require words, or forgiveness, or even understanding. Sometimes, walking away calm, certain, and whole is the most graceful way to let go. After that last encounter, I never saw her again. No texts, no late-night apologies, no maybe someday. It was as if we both silently understood that some stories are meant to end quietly, not with a fight, not with closure, but with acceptance. For weeks, I expected to feel broken. I thought I'd wake up every morning missing her voice, her laugh, the way she used to tap my shoulder twice before walking away. But instead, there was calm. Not peace at first, more like stillness. Like when a storm ends, and the air is thick but quiet, and you can finally breathe again. I started noticing small things again. The way sunlight hit the window at 7 a.m., the smell of fresh coffee, the low hum of the city outside. It wasn't that life got better, it just started moving again, without her name attached to every thought, without that ache pressing against my ribs. One evening, I walked past the diner we used to go to. The waitress, the same one who used to joke about us being that couple that never stops talking, gave me a polite nod. I sat by the window, ordered my usual, and waited. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for her to walk in. I was just there, present. When the food came, I caught my reflection in the glass. I looked older, not in a bad way, just more real, like someone who had finally stopped pretending that love could fix everything. It hit me then. Love isn't always supposed to last. Sometimes it's just supposed to teach. Teach you where your boundaries are. Teach you what kind of silence feels safe, and what kind makes you feel unseen. Teach you that loving someone deeply doesn't mean you owe them your peace. I think she loved me in her own way. But love without self-awareness is just chaos with good intentions. She said she needed space to find herself, but maybe she was just afraid of standing still long enough to face what she really wanted, and me. I was too busy trying to be understanding that I forgot how to protect myself. Now, months later, when I see couples on the street, laughing, fighting, holding hands, I don't feel envy. I just feel gratitude, because I once had that, and now I have something else, clarity. One night, I found an old box under my bed. Inside were tiny remnants of us, a photo strip, her note written in red pen, a movie ticket from our first date. I held them for a long time. Then I put them back, not out of nostalgia, but respect. You don't burn the past to move on. You just stop living in it. Sometimes, when her mum posts something online and her name appears in a tag, I don't click. I don't need to know how she's doing. Because I finally understand, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over curiosity. I walk differently now, lighter, slower, not because I'm sad, but because I'm no longer rushing to prove I'm okay. I am okay. Not perfectly, but honestly. Love changes you. but losing it gracefully, that's what transforms you. That night, I stood on my balcony, city lights flickering below, a soft wind cutting through the still air. I closed my eyes and let the noise fade. I thought of her, not as someone I lost, but as someone who helped me find the version of myself that finally knew when to walk away. Maybe that's what real closure looks like. Not a conversation, not a text, not a second chance. Just quiet understanding. I whispered, almost to myself, "Thank you for showing me what I needed to see." And as the wind brushed past my face, I smiled for the first time in a long time, not because of her, but because of me. That's the thing about heartbreak. It doesn't end with pain. It ends with peace. And mine had finally arrived.